Thursday, you know what that means. Today is Bitcoin and politics this week. But before I get started, let me give a little shout out to our sponsor by saying this. What's faster than a mining rig, more powerful than a piggy bank, and able to compound your savings in a single click? It's a Bored Ape? It's a dick butt? No, it's RoundlyX. Hey, listen, go to roundlyx.com and start stacking sats with your spare change. And you can even do routine automatic purchases of Bitcoin because they partner with the best exchanges. You get $15 in Bitcoin when you use code BitcoinPolitics. It's Bitcoin and politics time, folks. All right, folks, this is Paul McNeal, the Crypto Curator. I curate news information every day on digital assets, the top 10, I guess you can call them crypto assets, not really digital assets. And I do that because I want everyone to get up to speed on what's going on in the digital asset space. Now, today, the show is going to be talking about crypto crackdown. What's going to happen to crypto? And, you know, that title in and of itself is a little tricky because, as most of you know, I'm not a Bitcoin maxi, I'm Bitcoin maxi light. But what I mean by that is that while I understand that there are other digital asset projects out there, the best digital project is by far Bitcoin because it's in a class all by itself. So keep that in mind as I start talking about this crypto crackdown, because to be honest, it's not about Bitcoin. It is about crypto. So let's start off with, of course, the biggest story that's going on right now is what's happened in the past couple of days. We know that the SEC is coming out hard on the crypto asset space, right? We've seen them first go after Binance by trying to sue them, and then they came out the very next day and they sued Coinbase. And folks, we all know that Coinbase has asked several times for regulation in this space when it comes to digital assets. And the SEC has been not only mum on the word, but they've been a little shady themselves. And so when you look at this crackdown that's happening, the true question is, what is going to happen to crypto? Not Bitcoin, because we know that Bitcoin is a commodity and it's governed by the CFTC. And we know that it is the only decentralized censorship-resistant technology on the planet. So if you're a Bitcoiner, you really don't have much to worry about. If you're a shitcoiner, you got a lot to worry about, right? Because this is what the SEC is going after. This is what the regulators are going after. And the difficulty in trying to go after this space is, how do you really manage it? How do you really deal with it? So we do know some lawmakers. And again, folks, I don't mean to be partisan here, but it is starting to look quite partisan when you start looking at who's really trying to fight for this space and who's not. Now, that is still has a caveat, because why? It depends on which angle you're looking at this space. I don't believe that the Democrats just want to crush crypto and just ban it from our existence. Although I know some of you might argue with me on that. I think they're looking at it from a different angle, and they're trying to look at the bad actors and go after the bad actors. And this can be challenging because how do you regulate, or how do you even legislate in an environment like this when you're trying to go after bad actors? But when you go after bad actors, it also hit good actors as well. It's a very tough thing. So that being said, I do want to read some of the quotes from lawmakers on the SEC. Now, this is from Cynthia Lamas. She's a senator from Wyoming, and this is what she had to say, and you can see it right down the screen. The SEC has failed to provide a path for digital asset exchange to register, and even worse, has failed to provide adequate legal guidance on what differentiates a security from a commodity. And that, like I said, just said that, right? This is the hard part. What's a security? What's a commodity? It's hard to be able to tell. The SEC's continued reliance on regulation by enforcement continues to harm consumers. And if you're like me, we've all been harmed by some of the actions the SEC has taken trying to get their hands around this industry. And it's tough. And again, like I said, I'm glad I'm not the SEC. I wouldn't want to deal with it because depending on where you fall and what your experience has been, sometimes we want someone to get involved because we've been shafted, right? And we want someone to help us out. But at the same time, we also don't want anybody to have their hands on this. We want to be totally, libertarian with this whole space. So it's a tough balance to have. She goes on and says, real consumer protection requires creating a robust legal framework. And this is what we've seen try to occur overseas in the UK. They've tried it. They've made attempts. And some of the other jurisdictions have been trying to work to come up, in Australia, come up with comprehensive framework for digital assets. And it's not that easy. She goes on and says that exchanges can comply with, not pushing the industry offshore or into the shadows. This is why Congress needs to pass the Lummis-Gillibrand Responsible Financial Innovation Act. Now, can this act really provide the framework to govern digital assets or crypto assets? We'll see. Senator Bill Hagerty, again, another Republican, says the SEC is weaponizing their role to kill an industry, allowing a company that lists publicly and then stonewalling their attempts to register is indefensible. Garry Gensler, expect to hear from Congress. So what they're talking about here is that Coinbase actually went and talked with the SEC, and what happens? The SEC gives them the rules, gives them the ability to actually become a publicly traded company, and then they come out and do the bait and switch on them and say, oh, but we're going to hit you guys now because you guys are registered securities. SEC, we uncovered everything. We showed you everything. You guys had every ample opportunity to say something then. Why didn't you? And you're going to let us become a publicly traded company. Now, in fairness, I was watching an interview where one of the reporters was telling Brian Armstrong, CEO of Coinbase, that the SEC made stipulation when they made them public that they could come back later and hit them for this whole securities thing. I just think it's shady as crap. I think the SEC is a bit shady, and that's unfortunate. Now, we have to look at what the lawmakers are saying by Binance. Now, Binance has been and is the largest crypto exchange that's out there. It doesn't have jurisdiction in the United States. Now, what happened with Binance is that the regulators did come against them hard until Binance created Binance.US. So you have Binance and Binance.US, supposedly two separate entities. Well, it's starting to come out now that apparently CZ probably had a lot to do with Binance.US, and he probably oversaw Binance.US. So was it really two separate entities? Probably not. They were probably one and the same. So you got lawmakers coming after Binance hard because Binance does list a lot of stuff that the SEC considers securities, yada, yada, yada. So this is what the Democrats are going against Binance, and this is what they had to say. While Mr. Zhao has claimed that Binance.US is a fully independent entity, in reality, he controls the company as a de facto subsidiary of Binance. And so Elizabeth Warren and Chris Van Hollen, they're going after CZ, and they're trying to go after Binance in a big way. In addition to that, as we start looking at some of the hearings that have been happening on Capitol Hill, there was a hearing that happened, and they were talking about blockchain technology in the future of Web3. And Representative Rick Allen from Georgia, so if you're in Georgia, you should be giving shout outs to Rick Allen, says U.S. lawmakers are making a mistake by allowing the conversation around crypto to be dominated by security versus commodities debate. Crypto is more than just the financial aspect. There's blockchain technology that is also at play here. And so by the lawmakers focusing so much on the financial aspect, with good reason, they're missing a whole other section of this technology. And so Representative Rick Allen is saying that. There was another hearing that came about, and it was Representative Stephen Lynch and Representative Brad Sherman, and they were trying to talk about how the crypto asset space is sidestepping tax regulation. And so it says for many years, the crypto industry has been a major source of tax evasion and significant parts of the nation's tax gap. So what we're looking at here is that we've got lawmakers dealing with the SEC. We've got lawmakers dealing with Binance, these exchanges directly, Coinbase included. We've got these hearings that are coming up about the actual blockchain technology itself. There is a lot going on Capitol Hill when it comes to crypto, and the question becomes, what will ultimately happen with it? If you are dabbling with crypto assets other than Bitcoin, you need to be tuned in. You cannot stick your head in the sand and not pay attention at this point. So let's go on to our next one. The digital asset market structure draft. Now, this is some framework that's being put out there, and it was from the House Committee on Financial Services, House Committee on Agriculture, Representative Patrick McHenry and Representative Glenn Thompson, both Republicans once again, and they're looking at this whole commodities versus securities debate in a different light. It says this functional framework would provide digital asset firms with regulatory certainty and fill the gaps that exist between the authorities of the Commodities Future Trading Commission and the Securities Exchange Commission. So this framework they're trying to put together is going to put to rest, hopefully, and a lot of people are celebrating this draft as possible answer to this whole debate between what's what. It says the digital asset market structure discussion draft, and it's just a draft right now, provides the CFTC with the jurisdiction over commodities, which is not new. We've already known that, and clarifies the SEC's jurisdiction over digital assets offered as a part of an investment contract. Again, nothing new there, still the same thing. But it goes on and says that the act specifies that a digital asset can be considered a digital commodity if certain conditions are met. And this has been part of the issue all along with Ethereum. And I know a lot of people say Ethereum is a security. They were saying, yes, initially during its ICO phase, it probably was a security, but now that it's totally decentralized, it's not a security. Some people would argue and say that Ethereum is not decentralized, but in fact, it is decentralized. So this is, again, the conundrum that the regulators are faced with. How do you deal with this stuff? It's not easy. It goes on and says this would be determined by the network being functional and considered decentralized. The act includes definitions for a decentralized network and a functional network and provides a certification process. And this is the new part, the certification process under which a digital asset issuer may certify to the SEC that their network on which the digital asset relates is decentralized. And so, again, we're hoping that this is going to create a framework in which we can move forward. Again, these types of things are being done by Republicans and not being put forward by Democrats. And you hate to say it, is this a bipartisan issue? I don't know. Again, and I like to say that there are some Democrats that are playing with this. They like this, that they're supporting this, but it's overwhelmingly Republicans that are doing it. So however that floats your boat and however that makes you feel, I'm just bringing the facts of what I see. The next one is the Digital Dollar Pilot Prevention Act. And again, when you look at it, it's Republicans who are going after things like this. They're saying, wait a minute, under the guise of a rapidly expanding pilot program, Chinese citizens will soon no longer have the choice of whether or not to use a digital yuan. Mooney said in a statement to Fox Business, once it is fully implemented, it would allow Chinese officials to surveil and manipulate the financial activity of not only its citizens, but also foreign individuals or firms that does business with China. CBDCs are not about innovation, they're about control. This is Representative Alex Mooney, Republican of West Virginia, and what he's saying, and I know that we have other bills out there to deal with the CBDCs and the digital dollar, but what he's saying is that I don't even want pilot programs from the Fed to be enacted without Congress approving it. And so Congress is trying to get their hands around this big time, and I have to, again, salute the efforts of the Republicans at trying to make sure that the American people stay safe and stay free. Lastly, again, I'm showing you both sides so you guys can understand what I'm saying. We got Democrats, and they are starting to take hits at El Salvador. Why? Senator Jim Risch and Senator Bob Menendez, both Democrats, one from Rhode Island, one from New Jersey, are saying, given U.S. interest on prosperity and transparency in Central America, we must seek greater clarity on how the adoption of Bitcoin as a legal tender may impact El Salvador's financial and economic stability, as well as El Salvador's capacity to effectively combat money laundering and illicit finances. So again, these Democrats are trying to hit at El Salvador, not because they don't want El Salvador to make Bitcoin legal tender, some people would disagree, but because they're saying, how do we handle the money laundering and illicit finance activities? Now with that, well, how do you do that with US dollars? US dollars is the biggest place that most of this activity takes place. It's not with digital assets. So it is a little bit weird that the Democrats take this angle. Republicans are not so much. So it does seem like if you can look at it from a broad scope, Republicans support crypto, Democrats doesn't, but it's a lot more nuanced than that. So please don't take that away from what I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, because I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it appears like that. Remember, what's his name with BitConnect? He's like, I'm not saying that they took your money. Well, they took your money, right? So it's the same thing. I'm not saying that there's a partisan issue here, but there's a partisan issue here. All right, let's take a look at, lastly, there is a new organization that's been stood up. It's actually not new. It's a year old, Digital Freedom Alliance. Ryan Selkis has set this thing up in 2022. Really didn't go anywhere. I think he's now resurfacing it, bringing it back up, making it a big deal. The title's a little misleading because it says $100 million fight for crypto in DC with Ryan Selkis. Sort of makes it seem like he's going to raise $100 million. He's not. He's only looking to raise about $5 million or so. But his goal with this new alliance, this new organization, is to flood DC with pro-crypto messaging and to help pro-crypto clients get elected. And that's what it's sort of after. Not necessarily a super PAC, but more or less trying to work to make sure that the messaging on Capitol Hill and in the ears of the politicians is pro-crypto. Now, again, pro-crypto. He's not really saying pro-Bitcoin, and it would be nice if it was pro-Bitcoin, but it's not. It's more pro-crypto. So, again, and I'm Bitcoin Maxi Light. Listen, some of these projects are viable projects. You guys know that. But at the same time, I always tell people it's just like in tech. Hey, if I recommend IBM to you, what can you say to me? I gave you the best. If I recommend Bitcoin to you, gave you the best asset out on the planet. There's nothing more I could do. If you want to play with other assets, be my guest. I'm not going to knock those projects per se, but I am going to say that if you're going to put your hard-earned money somewhere, it should be in Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is the safe haven. Bitcoin is the store of value, and that's the way to go. Okay, let me wrap this thing up by having some fun. As you guys know, really good friend of mine, he runs Cap Hill Crypto. George Leonardo, I give him shouts out all the time because he does really good work. The rest of my presentation is going to be as a result of his efforts at Cap Hill Crypto. There's a legislative tracker that's on his website. I highly recommend you guys take a look at it. Listen, as much as we in crypto don't like government, don't want to deal with government, we have to play ball at some level. This is what Ryan Selkis is understanding as well, and this is why he's raising money. That's why $100 million will flood Capitol Hill to get pro-crypto messaging on Capitol Hill so that the legislators will have factual, good information. So what he's done is he's compiled all of the bills that are happening up on Capitol Hill, who's sponsoring them, who's co-sponsoring them. So if your constituent and your representative is on here and you don't like the direction that they're going, you should reach out to them and say, hey, let's not do that. Let's go this direction, right? Let our voice be heard. I know most of you are saying our voices don't mean anything. I actually think they do. And I think the more that we get involved with this process, the better off the process will be. Because if we do nothing, what do you think is going to happen? Exactly. They will do it themselves, and they will do it the way they want to, not the way we want to, and we are the people. So with that being said, thanks to Capitol Crypto, there are 27 active bills in Congress, this 118th Congress, 27 bills. 12 of them are in Senate and 15 are in the House. Of the 12 that's in the Senate, 3 are being sponsored by Democrats, and I can't say that they're all pro-crypto because they're not. 2 by independents, that would be Cinema, and I forgot the other independent that's there. I'll get the other one. And then 7 Republicans, right? In the House, there are 3 Democrats who are sponsoring bills. Again, can't say they're pro-crypto, and 12 Republicans. The breakdown of that, as we look at it and we go on, if we start looking at the Senate bills first, right? Senate is heavily Democrat for the most part. It's like 50-50 actually. It's not heavily Democrat. It's 50-50 with our VP breaking that 50-50. So the first bill, not the first bill, but the first person in the Senate who has sponsored the most bills is my senator, Ted Cruz, who I hope will get beat by my representative, who's also running against him. I'm not going to shy away from that. But anyway, he's sponsoring 3 bills. One is about adopting crypto in Congress. That is actually in the halls of Congress, using crypto in Congress. The second one is a digital asset transfer bill. And the last one is a Federal Reserve Prohibition Act. Senator Kirsten Sinema, she has 2 bills. Improving Digital Identity Act of 2023. And as you can see, some of these don't deal with the actual financial aspects. Some of these are with the other aspects of blockchain technology. But Improving Digital Identity Act 2023, and then the Responsible Digital Asset Advertisement Act of 2023, making sure that when people advertise about crypto, that it is actually legit. Then we've got Senator Tommy Tuberville, representative, Republican from Alabama. He is all about financial freedom of 2023. As we look at our other Senate bills, we've got Senator Ed Markey, a Democrat of Massachusetts. And as you can see, his is on the Crypto Asset Environmental Transparency Act of 2023. All this nonsense about ESG. Don't believe it. Don't believe the hype. Got Senator Gary Peters, Democrat of Michigan, Securing Open Source Software Act. And again, like I said, not all of this have to deal with the actual financial aspect. It's dealing with other aspects as well. Then you've got 2 more Republicans, one from Utah, one from North Carolina. They're dealing with no CBDC, right? As you can see, Republicans, and Financial Technology Protection Act of 2023. And then to round it out on the Senate side, we've got Jim Risch, who's looking at the Accountability for Cryptocurrency in El Salvador Act, ACES Act, and again, that is an actual bipartisan bill. And then Maggie Hassan, Dark Web Interdiction Act of 2023. All of these bills you can find on Capitol Crypto. There are links to all of them. You can go read them in detail, understand exactly what they're about, which I highly recommend that you do. Now, as we move over to the House, we're going to look at Representative Byron Donalds, who is big time on sponsoring bills, as well as Tom Emmer. Both of these guys have 3 bills apiece. One's on the expanded nuclear energy. This bill is the most supported bill currently in Congress. Expanded nuclear energy for mining of digital assets, believe it or not. And it's House Resolution 124. It is heavily bipartisan. 15 different representatives are sponsoring this bill. I think it's probably got a good chance of moving forward. You got HR 370, it's the Financial FinCEN Modernization Act, and then the Financial Freedom Act. So as you can see, he's heavily weighted on the financial side of the digital asset space. We've got Representative Tom Emmer, we know is a huge crypto supporter. I don't know if he actually holds Bitcoin or not, but he's definitely, again, against CBDCs, Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, and Securities Clarity Act, trying to get some clarity on what's a security and what's not. Then you got David Schweikert, who almost lost his reelection. His is on preventing opportunistic returns on trades and futures by officials, leadership and individuals, and Office Act, Portfolio Act. And this is the one you have to pretty much disclose what you hold when it comes to digital assets. Within the House, there's 4 more bills from French Hill, who is actually the chair of the Financial Committee, I believe, or the banking, no, it's not banking, it's Financial Committee, I think. 21st Century Dollar Act. This is dealing with, again, our digital dollar. You got Blaine Luke, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because it's beyond me. Representative of Montana, Chinese CBDC Prohibition Act of 2023. Again, China's CBDC can have a lot of impact on the U.S. It's important for us not to take a blind eye to that. I am happy that there are representatives on Capitol Hill that are looking into that, because if China's CBDC does become robust in the world, then we're all going to be surveilled, and we don't want that. Patrick McHenry, he's looking at the Keep It Innovation America Act. This is another heavily bipartisan act. I think they have over 15 sponsors, co-sponsors, part of this bill. I believe this one's got a good chance of moving forward as well. And then you got Jared Huffman. He's a Democrat in California, looking at, again, the Crypto Asset Environmental Transparency Act, which we know that deals with the environment and ESG and all that nonsense. Rounding out the House bills, Pete Sessions in Texas, great state of Texas that is, regarding the importance of proof of work mining. As you know, Texas is a huge mining state. We are all about mining. As a matter of fact, we had some big wins when it comes to mining. We had the Anti-Mining Act get shut down. We had the Pro-Mining Act get approved. And of course, Biden's tax mining failed to come to pass in the bill that was being passed for the debt ceiling. So that was good news for Texas. Overall, mining will continue to thrive in the state of Texas. Zachary Nunn looking at the Financial Technology Protection Act of 2023. And then we've got Jake Achiklas, I guess that's how I pronounce his name, the Power of the Mint Act, and then the Dark Web Interdiction Act of 2023 with Chris Pappas. So as you can see, we've got some very interesting bills that are out there that are in play. I think it's important that if any of your states have been mentioned, that you reach out to your representatives, let your voice be heard on what you think about this. But please first go to Capitol Hill Crypto and get yourself educated on what's actually happening with these bills, because if you don't, then you're not going to understand what's really going on in this space. Let me do something real fast. I think okay. Next, we're going to look at some of the congressional legislation, some of the actual congressional legislation. So the first question we have to ask ourselves is, can Congress actually ban crypto? This is from CoinDesk, the Digital Asset Anti-Money Laundering Act that Senator Elizabeth Warren and Roger Marshall are pushing through Congress is the legislative equivalent of a Trojan horse. And that's what John Rizzo wrote. It would effectively ban crypto in the guise of fighting money laundering. We definitely do not want that to happen. When we look at HR 1414, this is that Keep Innovation in America, what I talked about before. This narrows the definition of a broker in digital assets for digital assets tax reporting requirements, and is being co-sponsored, as you can see, by both Democrats and Republicans. That is a really good bill. Hopefully, again, I think that one's going to move forward. If we look at the HR 1460, this is the Crypto Asset Environmental Act of 2023. This is directing the EPA to look into Bitcoin, crypto mining, yada, 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 as I mentioned by Jared Huffman. If you look at House Resolution 238, which is our next one, that's regarding the proof of work mining, as I mentioned before, by Pete Sessions. And last but not least is the No Central Bank Digital Currency Act, or No CBDC Act. That's in the Senate. That's by Mike Lee of Utah. Senator Ted Cruz and Mike Braun are the co-sponsors. It's prohibiting the Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC directly to individuals through custodial intermediary and offering products and services directly. So this is what I'm trying to get over to you guys when it comes to Bitcoin and politics. Throughout all of what you just heard, did we hear much about Bitcoin? Did not, right? It's a no-brainer. This is why, again, you want to put your money in the best savings technology on the planet. As Mark Yusko says, it's Bitcoin. And you want to keep dollar cost averaging yourself. Why? Because as you do, it's going to keep stacking sats. I was actually talking to my brother-in-law about this, and I was telling him, this is a game of Satoshis right now. It's not a game of Bitcoin anymore, because most people don't have the ability to just buy Bitcoins, right? You can't get multiple Bitcoins unless you've got a lot of money. But you can get a lot of Satoshis. And the more Satoshis you stack, the more you'll actually have. And Charlie Lee said, I would recommend everyone work to own one Bitcoin before you own anything else. And that's really what this game is about, stacking sats. As I said at the beginning of the show, the best way to stack sats is with Roundly X. Why? Because they allow you to put your credit card, debit card to their platform, and every time you make a purchase, it rounds it up in Satoshis, which means you're constantly stacking Satoshis as you spend money, not doing anything else, just doing what you normally do. You're now stacking sats. The same thing happens with reward programs. There's a lot of companies out there helping you get cash back in sats. Any way you can get sats, folks, that's the name of the game. Just keep stacking sats. I promise you, you will not regret it. Now, I can't give you financial advice. And if you decide to put money into Bitcoin, that's on you. It's not me. I'm providing you information so that you can make a decision. But I'm saying, if I'm this adamant about it, you should look into it, right? Bitcoin, and at the very beginning, $0. Today, some 14 years later, $26,000. Where else are you going to find that kind of return on the plan with any asset? Real estate, gold, silver, bonds, T-bills, you name it. It's Bitcoin, 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 Bitcoin. It's going to give you that type of financial freedom. And as you know, my show next Thursday will be Bitcoin is Freedom. The reason I say that is because it can give you your time back, because this is about a game of time. I think it was Jeff Booth who says, most of us don't want money. We want what money will give us. And that is time, freedom, freedom to do what you want, freedom to go where you want, freedom to buy what you want, freedom to be what you want. Bitcoin is freedom. So catch my show next week on Thursday. But before I go, let me end by saying this. My website is thecryptocurator.com. You'll find everything you need there. You'll find the #1 article talked about most during the day. You'll find my daily brief with all the curation. You'll find my shows, and you'll find a video and a podcast every day that I bring to you that I think you should watch. In addition to that, the Bitcoin Live network is filled with a lot of different shows. Not only my show, you have Gingerly and 3D Changes Perspectives. You've got Matty Sat's show, Beyond the Block. There's so much for you to learn from Bitcoin Live. So do me a favor, like the video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe and ring the bell. Why? Because you'll get notified whenever we air. This show comes out on Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. Every Thursday, I alternate shows, Bitcoin is Freedom, Bitcoin and Politics. Please tune in, folks. Listen, whether it's one person watching me or millions of people watching me, I'd like the latter. The point is hopefully I'm encouraging you and I'm inspiring you to read what I read, watch what I watch, and listen to what I listen to. If you do that, you won't need to believe me and you won't need to listen to me. You will be very informed, and that's what it's all about. Hey, folks, thank you for tuning in to Bitcoin and Politics. This has been Paul McNeal, the Crypto Curator. You guys have a great weekend.